We'll kick things off, ladies and gents, with our game of the weekend. It's the one from Friday night, and it's a Yorkshire derby between Sheffield Wednesday and Leeds United at Hillsborough. Leeds are the 5-6 favourites for this one. Sheffield Wednesday are 7-2 for the win, and the draw is 14-5. Leeds, the odds-on favourites, despite not winning a game yet this season, Justin. Interesting.
It's the Leeds factor, isn't it? It's just Leeds. The fact that they are a huge club, still packed with talent despite selling most of their talent. Their squad's still considerably better than, I would say, 3/4 of the Championship or 4/5. I'm trying to narrow these fractions down because they have a top 4 squad quite easily in the division right now. So yeah, it's not really surprising to see the odds are there, and I don't think we're at a stage in the season yet where form's really a factor. And when you consider the fact that Wednesday have scored 4 and conceded 4 in games, I think it's a very wide open game.
Yeah, well that would go against what you were just saying about it being an odds-on favourite.
I'll get onto it in a moment, but I think it's, from my perspective, it's a wide-open game because of the inconsistency that's set into Sheffield Wednesday. I say the inconsistency over 2 games, but the Leeds factor, I think, just pulls in there with them being favourites.
I think it's not a surprise that they're favourites. I think it's a surprise that they're odds-on favourites. But we'll talk more about that in a sec, Justin. It's hard to keep away from the never-ending soap opera at Leeds United. I think that's fair to say. They may have made £140 million this summer, but they have 7 days left of the transfer window to get the additions that they think will get them promoted this season. Whether that happens or not, it's going to be fascinating to see. One player who is signing is Belgian winger Larja Ramazani from Spanish side Almeria. The 23-year-old is moving for £10 million, according to the Yorkshire Evening Post. He used to be at Manchester United, playing for them in the Europa League. He got 3 goals and 5 assists in La Liga last season. And I suppose we can rejoice, Justin, because Leeds have finally got their finger out.
And they're signing a larger-than-life character, right?
Larger, yes, good.
Yes, there we go. I thought I was going to get a bigger laugh than that, but here we go.
It took me a while to process it, to be honest. But yes,
that's fine. They are getting their finger out, and they need to, as you say. They've got a week to get deals in over the line. It's a precarious situation because I think the season does balance on it a little bit because it makes the job considerably harder for Daniel Farke when you've sold divisional bests in Crescencio Somerville and Jorginho Ruta. It's almost an impossible situation because you then got to replace those with squad players or backup players that have been in the squad previously, and it's just not going to be attainable for Farke. He needs depth, he needs quality in through the door, and going after a player who, by the looks of it, he's very athletic, he's very quick over sort of 5 or 10 yards, which should be very fun and interesting to see against Championship fullbacks. Looks a tidy signing. I saw a goal he scored against Real Madrid a couple of years ago. He took it very well. That being said, that's the only sort of factor we have as to whether or not he's going to be a good player or not. But Leeds are signing players, and that's a positive. The recruitment team is active at the very least.
Yeah, they're signing players, and this is a rather larger fee, isn't it? And I agree with you, Justin. I don't know much about him, I've got to say. Leeds' record of recruitment under the 49ers has been patchy, to say the least. So that's one thing I will throw in there. We have been pining for them to finally do something, and it's good that they've finally gone out there and done something. I have done a bit of research into this lad, and he seems like an exciting talent. Is he good enough to get Leeds promoted this season? Well, he was in and out of an Almeria side who were pretty shocking in La Liga last season. They bottomed for pretty much all season before a bit of an upturn in form towards the end, which saw them rise up to 19th. So I'm not sure, I've got to say. The bottom line is he as good as Crescencio Somerville? He might be in the future because he's still quite young, but not right now. So I'd be looking at this, Justin, and thinking, even though they have gone out and forked out £10 million, a larger fee, I still think they need a fair bit more before the window closes next week.
The business isn't done, nowhere near done. I know, and Ramazani, I think, to give him some credit, yes, his goal and assist record last season in the league wasn't particularly flattering, but if he's got the qualities that Leeds need in this system, then it very much might fit and it might work out. Some good signings don't work out, for example. Some signings go under the radar and they're brilliant. It just happens. You look at Timu Puki under Farker, for example. Free transfer and becomes an absolute goat at Championship level and at Carrow Road as well. So don't think we can really judge it based on that just yet. But I think, as I was saying, I just don't. Leeds are nowhere near done. They can't be anywhere near done. They need at least 3 or 4 more players.
Hope for Leeds fans that they're not done yet.
Yeah, they need at least 3 or 4 more. At the very least, as I say, I would expect a couple more than that to come in. But as I say, 7 days to get those deals done. Big fees as well. Lots of admin. The club secretary is going to be very, very busy. Fax machine is going to blow up.
Did you see, by the way, that Leeds' 2024 calendar has on the front cover Archie Gray, Crescencio, Somerville and Jorginho Ruta? It's just poor planning, Justin. It's shocking planning.
Piss poor planning, yes. But I don't understand. What is the point in club calendars? Especially in football? Come on.
What do you mean?
Just what is the point? Because you get them in January, obviously, it's a new year. None of those players could be there come the end of the season.
No, of course not, Justin. But what you do is you keep it generic. You either put all your chips on players who you are pretty confident will still be there next season, or you put a picture of the fans on the front, or Ellen Road, or something like that. You've got to think about these things, man.
Yeah, or legends, or icons of a club, or players who have really
No, because then you'll be accused of being stuck in the past. You can't do that.
Yeah, but it's better than having players who don't play for you anymore, who have recently gone and taken a pretty penny at the same time. I don't know. Club calendars, they're not a thing for me. They shouldn't be a thing. Well, they shouldn't be a thing. They should not have current players on it at all.
No, you should have current players on, but I think you've got to be clever with it and stockpile these players at the front. I mean,
don't put players with release clauses on it.
Yes, don't. That's a good start, but also don't put 3 players who were always looking very likely to go if Leeds didn't get promoted in May. That would have been my advice to the Leeds calendar department, whatever they are.
Yeah, put your squad players on it. Give them some love.
Yeah, why not? Well, look, Justin, Sheff Wednesday will be a tough test for Leeds, won't they? A bit difficult to say based off their first 2 games, because we've seen 2 sides to Sheff Wednesday so far. But one would expect they would be a tough game for Leeds. They were sensational against Plymouth on the opening day. As we say, they were torn apart by Sunderland last weekend. It is going to be interesting to see whether it's going to be another Jekyll or Hyde situation in this game, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is a Jekyll and Hyde situation. Leeds haven't got going yet. I think that's the only thing I can really put in for Wednesday. They're coming, obviously on Wednesday, they're coming into the back of a game, coming into this game off the back of taking a hammering, whilst also giving a hammering in the first game of the season. So it is literally like, what Sheffield Wednesday are going to turn up, because you go back to the defending against Sunderland last weekend and it genuinely was terrible. It really was terrible. A complete surprise. I think it could, it even took Danny Rule by surprise, as I was saying in a weekend review last weekend, that Danny Rule sat on the bench for 2 or 3 minutes after the half-time whistle, sort of assessing with his assistants what the hell went wrong. And it was down to individual errors. And then you've got this situation where Leeds haven't yet ignited their season. Wednesday they've got to recover quick, because I think despite Leeds starting poorly, they will ignite at some point, and you don't want it to ignite at Hillsborough. You don't want Leeds to ignite at Hillsborough, because they could quite easily be in a similar situation to the one they faced against Sunderland last weekend.
Yeah, well, I like to think that Sunderland performance was just a poor showing against a very good side who were on it, because Wednesday were sublime against Plymouth, and it's incredible for there to be as much of a drop-off as there was. But look, it's a big Yorkshire derby. Under the lights at Hillsborough, I expect it to be a big crowd for this one and a great atmosphere at the same time. And with that being said, Wednesday will fancy their chances here, I think, because first and foremost, it's the same story as last week with Leeds. Now's the best time to be playing them, because they've lost their key players, still in the process of replacing them. And they've also had a slow start, 2 draws already. And Hillsborough will be bouncing tonight. And I reckon it could see them getting a big result against Leeds if everything pans out in my head as I would expect it to with Wednesday, Justin.
As you want it to, I think would be the description, mainly because it just that it being a Friday night fixture under the lights is really what sort of the take is here for Sheffield Wednesday, and it being at Hillsborough and the potential for I would say an upset, because Leeds I think would still be viewed as a huge scalp to many, and it being
100%.
a derby, and it being a derby as well, it just adds to that drama, and especially having it this early on in the season as well, which just again just fuels it even more. So. Yeah, I'm a little bit more sceptical in terms of what Wednesday can do, because I think you sort of get convinced and get sort of caught up in it with that battering of Plymouth, and then you sort of go, actually no, maybe there are weaknesses to this Wednesday side when seeing the Sunderland defending.
There is going to be weaknesses, Justin, but we have got to keep in mind that was an away game against a very good team, whereas this is a home game, completely different atmosphere. The fans will be willing the team on, because this is one of the games that Wednesday fans will want to win the most this whole season, without a doubt. So with that being said, I think that will give Wednesday an extra emphasis, and they'll be looking at this and hopefully be heading into it with the same kind of attitude that they did against Plymouth, as opposed to the one, and as I say, hopefully it was just a one-off against Sunderland.
I would more so think that the thing that's going to fuel them wanting to get a result here is to bounce back from that performance against Sunderland. Not necessarily the result, but the performance, because it was a really, really poor one. And if you can get a performance and put in a performance against this Leeds team, as we've mentioned, it's a good time to play Leeds, because they're still recovering from various things that we've discussed already. It's a good time to play them, good time to get a result. And as you say, I think that fuel of trying to put in a better performance than they showed against Sunderland will be the catalyst, as opposed to them wanting to get one over Leeds on a Friday night, under the light fixture.
I think it'll be a bit of both. I think they'll want to bounce back, but they'll also want to get one over Leeds. I think they'll ideally like to do both on tonight. So now, Justin, it's time for our second tier bet builder. And our friends at SBK, get this, they're offering a 50% boost on any bet builder for Sheffield Wednesday versus Leeds. That's right, 50%. And offers like that, combined with SBK's industry-leading odds, make it the best place to bet on the EFL. And if you don't believe us, sign up today and find out for yourself. So every Friday, we're making our own bet builder with 4 selections, all relating to our game of the week. So that's 2 for Justin and 2 for moi. Justin, what is your first selection?
It's a very tasty selection. I've gone with both teams to score, which I think puts me in that sort of mindset of it's going to be an open game. Wednesday are at home, so you'd back them to score, even against a very good defence in Leeds. But with that, I think, as I say, it will be an open game. Leeds likely to take their chances as well. They were very sort of open and creative against Portsmouth on the opening day. Not quite the same in the following game against West Brom, but both sides will be desperate for a win. Both sides will be desperate for differing reasons. Wednesday bouncing back from Sunderland, Leeds igniting their season, getting it up and running. And I think we'll see that in the play. I don't think it'll be a cagey game. I think it'll be an open one, and that will keep the defences wide open for goals.
Yeah, I hope we do see goals, because that's always good value for the neutral. I would be slightly concerned with this pick after the West Brom game last weekend, which was very cagey, and I don't think either side looked like scoring in that one. But I'd like to think that was just a one-off, and I'd be surprised if Leeds are that cagey once again. So yeah, I would agree with this pick, Justin. My first selection is Jan Valery to commit over 1.5 fouls. Now, I think it's fair to say Valery had a bit of a stinker against Sunderland, and it doesn't get any easier for him here. He'll be up against Willie Gnonto and Junior Firpo. Gnonto, very much the Leeds danger man right now. They'll be giving him the ball as much as possible, and he'll be running at Valery as much as possible as well. While Firpo has been fouled 3 times in each of Leeds' 2 games so far, so he's got a bit of a double handful as old Valery. So hopefully we'll see at least 2 fouls here, and he stops making a fool out of me. Commit 2 fouls for me, Valery.
Oh, let's just cancel the podcast. I had some good rhetoric lined up after that, but there's just no point.
That's fine with me. We'll see your next selection, Justin.
I'm giving up. I've gone with Matteo Joseph to have a shot on target. Look, Joseph has started the last 2 league games, and I'm still backing him for a very good season. Maybe not Golden Boot, but he's going to score goals, isn't he? He's in this Leeds team. He's got to score goals. But for him to have a shot on target, he's the starting striker. He's the focal point of Leeds' attack, and naturally, you'd back a striker to at least have a shot on target. West Brom maybe was a bit of an outlier, but if they are as fruitful and creative as they were against Portsmouth, then yes, I do expect Matteo Joseph to at least test James Beadle once.
Yeah, in the West Brom game, Joseph didn't have a shot, which is a concern. But against Portsmouth,
West Brom are a very good side.
Well, it was a very cagey game, wasn't it? We keep saying that, but if we're not expecting this to be a cagey game, then you'd expect Joseph to have a fair few chances. And he did have 2 shots on target against Portsmouth, had 4 shots in total in that game. So with that being said, if we are expecting this to be a less cagey one than what we've just been served up with Leeds, then you'd expect Joseph to have a shot on target. And I think I'm right in saying when I was looking at SBK earlier, he was 5-8 to have a shot on target, which is pretty decent odds for a striker in a team like Leeds. So I'd be all over that in my bet builder. And then our final selection for this, Sheffield Wednesday, double chance. And once again, for those who aren't aware, double chance is Sheffield Wednesday essentially not to lose. Basically everything that we've just been saying, it's Hillsborough under the Friday night lights. There'll be hopefully a packed house for this one. The Wednesday fans will be backing their team to the tilt. And I would expect them to be going at Leeds here and thinking this is a great chance for us to get a big scalp and hopefully bounce back from the disappointment of last Sunday against Sunderland. I am inclined to believe that, and I know I keep saying this, that it was just a one-off for Wednesday, and they'll be approaching this in a completely different mindset and having a good go at Leeds, and even just a point would be a good result for Wednesday, I would say. So double chance, I think that's a really good selection for this bet builder. Justin, are you fine with that?
I'm fine with it. I'm maybe a little bit nervous because I'm not as hot on Wednesday at Hillsborough as you are. As I say, that
are you just?
No,
I feel like you're taking the last result a bit too dramatically, Justin.
Because it was a disastrous performance. That's why
it was.
Yeah.
But remember how good they were against Plymouth.
No, that's gone. That's gone. You're only as good as you're only as good as your last game, and they got panned.
Bloody hell!
And they got panned.
I'll remember that when I look at your banker pick in a sec.
Shit. Yeah, that's fair. Completely contradicting myself here, but yeah, because it 4 goals as poorly as it did, does leave me a little bit nervous. But like I said, like I was saying when we were talking about Wednesday earlier, I just think they are going to go for it, but they're going to go for it in a very sort of. They're not going to be as open as maybe Leeds will want, if that's right, because they're at home. But they're up against a good attack. It's going to be very difficult for them to be as gallivanting as they were against Plymouth, if that makes any sense. So I think this might lead to or lend to a bit more of a structured performance from Wednesday than maybe one we saw, or not the free flowing one we saw against Plymouth.
And there we go. This week's bet builder comes out at 12-1. So a £5 bet on that would win you £65. However, with that tasty 50% winnings boost, which we mentioned just a second ago, if you add that on, you'll win over £100. And what a cracking start to the weekend. That would be peachy. But remember, if you don't fancy our bet builder, with SBK, you can create your own bet builder from a range of markets. And this Saturday, SBK are offering a free £2 bet builder on any game that day. T's and C's apply, over 18s only, and please do gamble responsibly. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll make our other predictions for this weekend. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast, and it's now time for us to have a look ahead to the weekend. And in each preview episode of the Second Tier, Justin and I will each pick a banker, a team we think is guaranteed to win this coming weekend, as well as an outsider. So someone we think is going to win, but is bigger odds with our friends at SBK than their opponents. We're tracking how we do as the season goes on. It's 1 point for a correct banker, 2 points for an outsider. Whoever loses has to do a forfeit. And the listeners have now decided that this season's loser will be a mascot at a game next season. Preferably at Derby County. If not that, at least a championship game. If not that, then preferably an EFL game. Details are still very sketchy right now because we don't know whether any Championship clubs or Derby County will let us do that. So we'll wait and see. But someone will be a mascot next season. We know that much for sure. And the current scores are 2-1 to Justin Peach after he got his banker correct last week. A rare lead for Justin Peach.
Yeah, a rare lead. And I also got my banker and outsider in before you and sent you a very explicit, aggressive voiced note. Yeah.
You've been very aggressive this week. You called me a bitch last night, and this morning you said you were going to wipe the floor with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm confident. I'm happy. I'm going into the season fresh. And I think that's showing with the score so far. I've only been a couple of kicks away as well from getting more points, so I'm glad. But these are the fine margins of the football. Anyway, shall I go on to talk about who I've picked?
Yeah,
I've rambled a little bit. Anyway, yeah, my banker is Middlesbrough to win at home against Portsmouth. Now, I know I said that just before the break that you're only as good as your last game, and Middlesbrough lost their last game to Derby in a game that they dominated and should have won. And they lost essentially because of a huge cock-up in the 14th minute, where Isaiah Jones tried to pass the ball back from Derby's goal line, pretty much. Pass the ball back to his goalkeeper like that. Yes, I realise that logic is a little bit flawed.
Instantly going back on himself 10 minutes later.
But I think that it was a rage-inducing defeat. It's a type of game that if you're playing on FIFA, you'd throw the controller at the TV. If you're playing on Football Manager, you would probably, I wouldn't want to say break your laptop because they're expensive, but it would cross your mind. It was a rage-inducing defeat away to Derby. As I say, where they dominated the game. That's going to fuel a desire to put a game to bed. They were okay at home as well last season. They're going to need to turn the Riverside into a fortress if playoff ambitions are going to be met. And that means getting points on the board early in the season. They cannot afford to be as inconsistent as they were last season, which means games like last week cannot repeat itself, especially in back-to-back games. Portsmouth have been strong so far as well. They stood up to 2 firm tests in Leeds and Luton. But I think Borough coming into the game off the back of that very annoying, pesky defeat to Derby is going to be the fuel here.
Yeah, I was surprised considering you were so eager with your selections this week, Justin, that you did pick Middlesbrough because while I am high on Middlesbrough this season, Pompey have impressed me so far. They're proving to be prickly opposition for Championship sides, and it wouldn't surprise me if they prove to be a stubborn test for Middlesbrough this weekend as well. What
I will add is that I'm not going to say the point away at Ellen Road was very fortunate. It wasn't. They still created a decent amount of chances being the away side, but Leeds hit the woodwork several times. Callum Lang scored an absolute beauty. Jayden Bogle made a mistake, which you conceded a penalty from. I'm not going to say they're fortunate to score 3 goals Portsmouth, but you're not going to get those opportunities every away game. And they're going to need to be on their top game again at the Riverside, because Borough are a very good attacking side themselves. But are you going to get those opportunities again and again and again? Probably not. So those things will leave themselves out, which again puts me in the category of wanting to pick Middlesbrough here.
Yeah, it has got to be said they did fail to make the most of Luton being down to 10 men after the goalkeeper Thomas Kaminski tried to commit double homicide. But yeah, they're still proving to be a stubborn side for Championship teams. And you've got to say we've both been impressed by Portsmouth so far, despite their extremely tricky start to the season. I will just say, Justin, before we go on to my banker of the week, and this is a story I liked. Middlesbrough's new American midfielder, Aidan Morris, has revealed Michael Carrick was one of his childhood heroes. He says he was a big Manchester United fan growing up and used to watch Carrick a lot. And now here he is, being managed by him, which is cute, isn't it? I like stuff like this.
It's adorable. It also makes me feel incredibly old because I grew up watching Michael Carrick, and I don't know, him now being a manager just makes you feel that bit older. And then you've got people sort of looking up to him now playing under him as well. It puts an uncomfortable feeling in me. Like I know age is a thing. Life hurtles past your eyes before you know it.
Yeah. When did he join Man United? Carrick.
2006.
2006.
Yeah, it was at Spurs.
So Aidan Morris is 22. So he's born in 2002. So that would mean he was bloody young when he saw Carrick. So
I mean, Carrick's best years were probably between sort of 07 and 2012 before.
I don't want to call Aidan Morris a bullshitter, but he also said in the same piece that Roy Keane was one of his favourite players.
It's not like Endrick picking Sir Bobby Charlton, is it?
Yes, it's not that bad, but I think perhaps reasons to be sceptical, unless he's watching old videos of games back. I don't know, but still a nice story. Here we are, the second tier, putting a cynical spin on it as always. Let's go on to my banker of the weekend. It's Swansea to beat Cardiff in the South Wales derby on Sunday afternoon. It's a big one, people. One of the biggest derbies in English football, except they're both Welsh, but it's the English Football League, so I guess I was correct the first time. Anyway, I'm backing a Swansea win this weekend. I think they've got a stronger squad than Cardiff. I like the project that's building there. Of course, they've got home advantage as well. And I was impressed with them in their 3-0 win against Preston. It was a fairly even game up until Swansea's second goal, and from that point they just cruised it. I love Ronald on the wing. I think he is such a thrilling player, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of him this season. New striker Zanza Vipotnik got on the score sheet as well, and they're looking tight at the back too. So really good positive signs from Swansea in these first two games, even though they were perhaps a bit flat against Middlesbrough on the opening weekend of the season. As for Cardiff, again, it's early days, so I won't get carried away. But they're one of the teams who I've been least impressed by so far. They were easily second best against Sunderland on the opening day. And then they were thumped 5-0 by Burnley, who didn't even play particularly well. And Cardiff just kind of accepted defeat in the end. And they're also yet to score this season. I'm very concerned about the goalkeeper, Ethan Horvath, who had one of the worst goalkeeping performances I can remember against Burnley, as we were alluding to at the weekend, Justin. Bit of a liquid. They need a lot of work before the transfer window closes. And one final thing is, and this feels like quite an important one, is Swansea's recent record in the South Wales derby. In the last 11 derbies, Swansea have won 8, drawn 1, lost 2. They have dominated this fixture for the last decade, and I reckon they'll continue it this weekend, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, when you're picking bankers, Swansea, in terms of performances this season so far, Swansea probably the most bankable fixture this weekend. But because it's a derby, it's one that I wasn't particularly comfortable with, because as we know, form goes out of the window. But we're 2 games in. Can form go out the window if you're 2 games in?
Form doesn't really exist when you're 2 games in, does it? So there's nothing to go out the window.
Exactly. So they can't. No one can say this cliche going into this derby fixture. Again,
I'm sure that someone will find it somewhere.
There'll definitely be a commentator saying it during the game. I think the other thing is as well, and this has no impact on the fixture whatsoever or any sort of support in what you're saying, Ryan. But a derby this early on in the season, it's very uncomfortable with me. I don't like it. We're 2 games into the season, we've got a derby.
I agree. I do agree. I feel like it's way too early for a derby. What is the most derby month in a calendar?
It's October.
I was going to say September. I feel like you want these fixtures early on, but not too early. August is too early for a derby. You're absolutely spot on there. But I think September, October is prime derby territory.
Yeah, you're too early on in the season. Everyone's still optimistic. You need trepidation. You need something on the line. Whereas 2 games in, this being the 3rd game, there's just not enough bitterness built up early on in the season. So therefore, we won't see the volatility a derby gives us, I don't think.
Well, hopefully that's not the case, but exactly. I do get what you're saying. I think the most derby month in the season is actually March. March is a very derby month, isn't it?
They're always around international breaks, aren't they, as well?
Maybe. I always think of March as I would love to see a final game of the season be a derby. Just once. Just where both teams have got something on the line and it's a derby game. That would be absolutely class, wouldn't it?
Or Boxing Day.
Yeah, it never happens on Boxing Day either.
No.
Come on now. Sort it out. But you're right. September, October, March, February, prime derby months. Not this August bollocks. It's an absolute disgrace. So there are mine and Justin's two bankers for the weekend. And every week we combine these two selections with a bet on the full-time result of our game of the weekend to create our very own second-tier featured multiple with SBK. So this week we're going for Middlesbrough and Swansea to win. And of course, Sheffield Wednesday double chance against Leeds. A £10 bet on that returns £51 with SBK. And you can create your own multiple with 3 or more bets on the full-time result of any game from across the Championship. T's and C's apply, over 18s only, and please do gamble responsibly. It's outsider time, people. Justin, can you reveal to the Bain public what your outsider is for this weekend?
I've gone with Sunderland to win at home against Burnley.
Ooh.
Now, this is where I'm sort of thinking maybe I picked in haste. Because there's been a lot of noise around Jack Clarke potentially leaving for Ipswich, which makes me incredibly nervous because I think Jack Clarke, any team with Jack Clarke in it, I think is much the better, which is very it's very much stating the obvious. But I also think he's a difference between Sunderland finishing the top 6 to Sunderland finishing out the top 6. So if he's not going to be available because his transfer is going to go through, that does happen. He's not spat his dummy out the pram, which is fantastic. Well done, Jack Clarke. We've not seen a Johnny Rose situation, but you do tend to see sometimes that these players who are on the verge of moves elsewhere don't get picked in the squads for obvious reasons. So if he's not, then that will diminish Sunderland's chances, I think, significantly against Burnley. That being said, Sunderland were electric on the break against Sheffield Wednesday. They were fantastic, and he come up against a team in Burnley who haven't been prolific chance creators themselves. I think as an outsider, Sunderland are a pretty good shout. But as I say, I think a lot depends on whether or not Jack Clarke's available.
I think that's fair, Justin. I liked how you said he spat his dummy out the pram, how he didn't spit his dummy out the pram. So not only has he not thrown his toys out the pram, he's kept the dummy in as well, which is a fantastic mix of two metaphors, which I'm not sure you intended, but, no. But it does make sense. I think I'm going to give your selection here more backing than you will, based off what you've just been saying, because I think you've been a bit harsh to Sunderland. Yes, they were fantastic against Sheffield Wednesday at the weekend, but Jack Clarke, while he was one of Sunderland's better players, I don't think he was their best player in that game. I think it was a fantastic team performance. I think Joe Bellingham absolutely ran the game in the middle of the park, and if he plays like that again this coming weekend, then he'll have a major say on this result. I was very impressed with Chris Rigg as well, despite being such a young lad. Mayenza up front, if he has another game like that, then my oh my, Burnley won't know what hit them. But then they also kept it really tight at the back as well. Sheffield Wednesday didn't really lay much of a glove on Sunderland last weekend. So with that being said, I think you've got more reason to be encouraged with this, Justin, particularly because, as I've been saying, Burnley, when it comes to teams who are on a similar level with them, they do have a good record. Scott Parker's got a good record against those kind of teams. Sunderland are probably just kind of like the level down, and they may find themselves coming up a bit stuck against Sunderland, particularly because they weren't great against Burnley, despite not Burnley, Cardiff, sorry, despite winning 5-0 bizarrely. So I think Sunderland are a good pick here.
Well, this is the other point I wanted to make about Sunderland, which convinces me a little bit more that they will get a result, and that it is a good pick. It is the fact that I think the youthful exuberance, almost naivety that Sunderland could potentially head into the game with actually might work in their favour, especially if Burnley failed to leave second gear as they have done as they did against Cardiff. I think it's probably less of the case against Luton, where they did really step up and were good. I think that might, if they repeat the performance they did against Cardiff, I think Sunderland are a team that are going to punish Burnley, are going to not make them suffer, because nothing it's ever that bad in football. But as I say, that naivety and just that go attitude to attack, and be a little bit more sort of looser, if you like, and a bit more fluid. I think that can work in Sunderland's favour here, and I think that's what will convince me that they would. But it's an outsider pick because Burnley have been brilliant on the break. They've been incredibly clinical as well, and that's something that Sunderland need to be mindful of. They cannot give up a chance, let alone 3, because Burnley, as they've shown in the last 2 games, will take their chances.
You are right, though. Jack Clarke, if he is playing, that'll be a huge boost for the Black Cats. Sky Sports are reporting that Ipswich have made a £15 million bid plus add-ons for him. So it's going to be a nervous week, nonetheless, for Sunderland fans wanting to keep hold of him. Burnley, meanwhile, they continue to be very active in the final week and a bit of the transfer window. They have signed defender Joe Worrell on a permanent deal from Nottingham Forest. What do you think about that one, Justin?
I think he's the perfect signing for what Burnley need. I know he's another centre half, but they're gonna get rid of players. Probably a little bit surprised that Forest are actually getting rid, because I don't think it was a worse option than what they had in the Premier League, if not for a terrible recruitment strategy at the club. But I think he's the perfect balance between a ball playing defender and a traditional type defender. Someone who's a bit hard, bit kick it sort of thing, but he's got a fair bit of composure about him as well. He's a leader and organiser as well, which is probably what Burnley could do with. I think despite Taylor Harwood-Bellis being so young, he offered that for Burnley in their promotion season under Vincent Kompany, and maybe they lacked it a little bit last season, but they have that with Joe Worrell. So yeah, I think it's a very, very good signing. I think he's absolutely the ideal personality that Burnley need.
Yeah, obvious replacement for Dara O'Shea, isn't he? So there is that. It does make the Bashir Humphreys signing that we were discussing yesterday even stranger, though, because we were alluding to Burnley already having a ridiculous amount of centre-halves as it is. Why they signed Bashir Humphreys, I have no idea now, because it just doesn't seem like he's going to get any game time. So I may be completely wrong, but that certainly does feel like it's the case. Let's go to my outsider. My outsider for this weekend is Norwich, at home to Sheffield United on Saturday afternoon. Now, of course, it's not been the most ideal start to the season for Norwich. They lost Gabriel Sara just before the opening weekend, and now Jonathan Rowe looks like he's finally getting the move he so desperately wanted. And young winger Abu Kamara has handed in a transfer request. But that's fine. Honestly, Justin, it's fine. We move on. Norwich have got a loss and a draw so far, and I reckon they can get their first win on the board this weekend. Despite losing Sara and Rowe, Norwich still have a lot of talent in this squad, particularly Josh Sargent up front, who got off the mark for the season last weekend. Boya Sayeens on the wing looked really threatening against Blackburn. He will be expected to step up now that Sara and Rowe are both gone. Marcelino Nunes in midfield was fantastic against Blackburn as well. They've also got new signing Forson Amankwa, who hasn't stood out so far, but he's highly rated. So we'll wait and see with him, I suppose. They were unlucky not to get all 3 points against Blackburn, actually, and they can make up for that here against Sheffield United, who I'm not really sure what to make of their start. They beat Preston, but benefited from a massive deflection and a mistake by Preston's keeper on the opening day of the season. And then they were 2-0 up against QPR, but ended up drawing after a really poor second half. So, yeah, not really sure what to make of Sheffield United, but there's undoubtedly a lot of talent in this team. I remain unsure whether Chris Wilder's the man to get the best out of them. So I think they could come unstuck this weekend, particularly away at Norwich. And I was surprised that the bookies actually had Sheffield United down as favourites for this one. So I'm more than happy to get on board with Norwich as my outsider for this weekend, Justin.
Yeah, this is the other outsider I had my eye on. I think it's a good test for Sheffield United, because it'd be interesting to see how they cope with the quality that Norwich have, considering they did drop that 2-goal lead against QPR last weekend. And Norwich have got the quality to hurt the Blades. And like I said, I think what honestly does go under the radar with a lot of people is, yes, Sheffield United have had a really good transfer window. They've signed some great players. There's plenty of squad depth there. It's been a good turnover. It takes time to bed that in. It takes time to get them going and used to a new philosophy. Well, not new philosophy, but a philosophy under Chris Wilder. It's going to take time. It's going to take time for that to bed in. So the mistakes are going to be made. There's still speculation linking because Hamer away, with a move away, etc. Still some uncertainty, so I think that they're going to have teething issues. And I think Norwich at home, with the quality that they've got, not been a big turnover in the squad as maybe what we could have expected. Lost some big players in Rowe and Sara, but I think what we saw against Blackburn is probably what we could expect to see going forward. They do need players, Norwich, but I still think they've got enough quality to hurt Sheffield United here, and I think that'll be the difference, is whether or not Sargent's on it. If he is, I think Norwich do win. If he isn't, probably a draw.
Norwich did have the 4th best home record in the division last season as well, only behind Ipswich, Leeds and Leicester. So another thing to keep in mind here. So that's another reason why it's worth thinking about Norwich this weekend. Right, it's now time for this.
All right. Settle down, you lot. It's time for the Craig Bryson pub quiz.
Yes, it is, Mr. Barman. It's the Craig Bryson pub quiz, and this is how it works. I'm going to give Justin 6 clues about a former Championship player, each more revealing than the next, and he simply has to guess who it is. They must have made over 200 Championship appearances in their career, and for the love of God, don't forget the Dexter Blackstock rule is in play, which means they must be more relevant than Dexter Blackstock. Justin put that rule to the test last week with his selection. He's adamant that he didn't, but I respect Dexter Blackstock's legacy, and therefore I've kept that in mind with my player that Justin's guessing today.
Gary Gardner. Gary Gardner, by the way, just for the listeners' perspective.
Yeah, Gary Gardner. Justin, would you like the first clue?
Yes, I absolutely do.
Your first clue is this. I have made 298 Championship appearances and scored 3 goals.
Prolific. Prolific. Could be a journeyman target man who was favoured by a certain type of manager, or he could be a defender. I'm going to go with the latter because that makes more sense. 298 appearances?
Yep.
I'll go for fullback. I'll go Chris Gunter.
It's not Chris Gunter, but it's always good to hear him mentioned. I made my Championship debut with Bolton in 2012.
This is interesting. Championship debut Bolton in 2012. 298 appearances.
Yeah.
It's got to be a defender.
Because he made 298 appearances, or?
Because he scored 3 goals. How crap of a midfielder have you got to be to score 3 goals in your career? I'll go Josh Wheeler.
It's not Josh Wheeler, but always good to hear him mentioned. This is your 3rd clue, Justin.
Okay.
I've won promotion to the Premier League on 3 occasions.
Shit. So he might not be a crap midfielder. He might just be crap in front of goal. I'm still going to go down a defender route, but I'm stuck on the Bolton thing. But maybe the 3 promotions is quite interesting. But who those promotions could have been with? Was it Shane
Now,
Duffy?
this isn't me wanting to throw you off the scent at all, but you know, it could be anything, Justin. He may have just had like a loan there or something like that. That's all I'm saying. Just throwing that out there.
No, that's fair. I'll go Shane Duffy.
It's not Shane Duffy. But good to hear mentioned. Your 4th clue is this, Justin. I have 61 caps for my country and played in all 4 games at the 2022 World Cup.
There are 32 countries at the World Cup.
Yeah, good.
Let me just go through them in my head.
No, we haven't got that much time.
But I don't know. So
Okay.
go to the next clue, please.
2 clues left, Justin. 2 clues.
Yeah, wow.
Your 5th one is this. I now play for Charlotte FC in the MLS.
See, the annoying thing is Jamie Patterson's just moved to Charlotte FC in the MLS. Now all I can think of is Jamie Patterson. And it's not Jamie Patterson because he didn't play the World Cup in 2022. And he's got more than 3 goals.
That's as far as I'm aware.
That's far as I'm aware. He plays for Charlotte FC. See, Nathan Byrne went over to Charlotte FC as well. But
Did he play at the World Cup?
I don't think he did. Oh, this is a doozy.
Ooh.
This is a doozy.
This is a doozy. I thought you would have got this by now, to be honest.
These are good. They're good clues. They're really good clues. I don't know. No, Ashley Westwood went over, but he's at Minnesota, I think. Next clue. Absolute disaster.
Also, don't think Ashley Westwood's played
No,
at the
he did-
2022 World Cup.
Just naming English players who've gone over to the MLS. Incredible.
Final clue, Justin. Final clue. I made most of my Championship appearances for Fulham.
It's Timothy Ream.
Oh, he got it right at the end. I wasn't sure. I saw the look on your face, and I wasn't sure whether you knew who it was or not. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is Tim Ream. He got there in the end. Justin, just to check with you, are you happy that's above the Dexter Blackstock rule?
Yeah, Tim Ream Dream. It's a really good one. The clues were so deceptive and misleading and cheeky because he made his Championship debut in 2012, but he wasn't a child. He was a grown man at that point. He was an adult.
Hey, did I say he was a young man?
No,
I didn't, did I?
It's
I'm
really
surprised
clever.
he made 298 Championship appearances, I've got to say.
3 promotions, 2 with Fulham.
3 with Fulham.
Shit.
Yeah. I was a bit surprised by that as well. Two playoffs and then one where they won the league. Yeah. 298 appearances in the Championship. That just seems way too many for someone who I think has played quite a few games in the Premier League. But there you go. Tim Ream is this week's Craig Bryson pub quiz, ladies and gentlemen, and Justin Peach got it right at the death. Neither of us have fallen foul to the Craig Bryson pub quiz yet, but there's still time to go this season, ladies and gentlemen.